There's a story in the Bible that proves that your origins do not determine your destiny. The story of a man rejected by his family, thrown out of his home for being the son of a prostitute, but whom God transformed into the liberator of an entire nation. A man who went from social outcast to judge of Israel. His name was Jephthah. Today, you will discover how God takes the very people the world rejects and uses them to do the impossible. You will understand that no matter how you were born, where you grew up, or how people see you, God has an extraordinary plan for your life. If you want to know one of the most powerful stories of overcoming in the Bible, like this video right now. Subscribe to the channel to receive more stories that show how God transforms rejected people into chosen ones. Share it with someone who feels unqualified by their past. And turn on notifications. This journey through the life of Jephthah can revolutionize your understanding of divine purpose. My name is Brian, and for the next hour, we're going to dive into the life of the man who proved that God doesn't care about your birth certificate, but about the heart you have. You'll learn about rejection turned into strength, exclusion turned into leadership, and how God uses the unlikely to do the impossible. Prepare your heart, because the story of Jephthah is not just about an ancient judge, it's about how God can use anyone, regardless of their background, to fulfill eternal purposes. The rejected son. To understand the magnitude of Jephthah's transformation, we must begin with one of the most painful origins recorded in the Bible. Judges 11:1-2 introduces us to Jephthah. Now Jephthah the Gileadite was a mighty man of valor, but the son of a prostitute. And Gilead begat Jephthah. Gilead's wife also bore him sons. And when the sons of this woman grew up, they drove out Jephthah and said to him, "You shall not inherit our father's inheritance, because you are the son of another woman." Imagine carrying that mark from birth, son of a prostitute in Israel. This wasn't just a social issue, it was considered a spiritual curse, a moral disqualification, an automatic exclusion from respectable society. Gilead was Jephthah's father, but he did not defend him when his half-brothers drove him out. The man who should have protected his son chose silence in the face of family injustice. "You shall not inherit our father's inheritance, because you are the son of another woman." The half-brothers not only rejected Jephthah, they dehumanized him. To them, he was not a brother. He was just the son of another woman. So Jephthah fled from his brothers and lived in the land of Tob. Jephthah was forced to leave his home, his city, his family, everything he knew. He was exiled because of something he did not choose: his origins. Family rejection is one of the deepest pains anyone can experience. Being rejected by strangers hurts, but being rejected by one's own family is devastating. Jephthah carried this wound for years. "I met a man who was rejected by his family because he was the son of an extramarital affair. He said to me, 'Brian, when I read about Jephthah, I found hope. I saw that God can use even those who are rejected by their families.' Today, I am a pastor, and I have helped dozens of people who have experienced the same rejection." Tob was a border region, a place of outcasts and rejects. It was where people with no place in society took refuge. But it was precisely there that God began to prepare Jephthah for his destiny. Judges 11 calls Jephthah a mighty man of valor, even before he proved it in battle. His valor was forged in adversity, his courage developed in rejection. And light-hearted men gathered themselves together unto Jephthah and went out with him. Even in exile, Jephthah attracted followers. Trifles does not necessarily mean bad men, but men without a fixed place in society, rejected, marginalized, without opportunities. Jephthah became the leader of the rejected. 4 years. In Tob, Jephthah developed military skills, leadership, and strategy. God was preparing him for something great, but through a path no one would choose. Sometimes the exile we think of as a curse is actually preparation. The place where we are rejected may be exactly where God is preparing us for our purpose. The same brothers who rejected Jephthah for his origins would one day have to beg for his help. God has a sense of justice that goes beyond human comprehension. The story of Jephthah teaches us that God does not consult our birth certificate before using us. He looks at our heart, our character, our willingness to be used by him. If you've been rejected by your family, if people judge you for your background, if you feel disqualified by your past, remember Jephthah. God has a plan for your life that goes far beyond human limitations. The leader of the rejected in exile, Jephthah did not become a victim of his rejection. He became a leader of those who were also rejected by society. In Tob, Jephthah gathered around him light men, people with no place in conventional society. They were adventurers, mercenaries, men who had nothing to lose. Imagine the scene: a group of marginalized people led by the rejected son of a prostitute, living on the borders, surviving as best they could. It was like an army of unlikely individuals being forged by God. During his years in Tob, Jephthah developed exceptional military skills. He learned strategy, tactics, and leadership under pressure. It was a school of war in extreme conditions. Even in exile, Jephthah's reputation as a warrior and leader grew. His military prowess became known throughout the region. It was impossible to hide such extraordinary talent. Jephthah had a natural gift for inspiring loyalty in difficult men. Getting mercenaries and adventurers to follow him with dedication requires exceptional leadership. Without knowing it, Jephthah was being prepared by God to deliver Israel. Every battle in exile, every difficult decision, every leadership challenge was preparation for something greater. The very brothers who cast him out were indirectly responsible for his preparation. Had he not been rejected, Jephthah would never have developed the skills Israel needed. A businessman told me, "Brian, I lost everything to a betrayal by my partners and was rejected by the business community. Like Jephthah, I took refuge among the rejects, forgotten small entrepreneurs. I learned more about real leadership in those difficult years than any MBA. Adversity revealed and forged Jephthah's true character. He could have become bitter, vengeful, destructive, but he chose to become a protector and a leader. During his years in Tob, Jephthah likely struggled with the temptation of revenge. He had reason to hate his brothers, but God was purifying his heart for leadership. Leading a group of volunteer men is different from leading conscripted soldiers. Jephthah learned to inspire, not just command. It was preparation for leading an entire nation. His years as a mercenary leader developed in Jephthah a broad strategic vision. He understood geography, regional politics, and military forces. It was like a course in national strategy. Even though he was rejected by Israel, Jephthah maintained love for the nation. When the time came, he was ready to risk everything to free them. This was rare greatness of character. In Tob, Jephthah built a network of relationships with border tribes, merchants, and warriors. This network would be crucial when he needed to form an army to liberate Israel. Jephthah didn't know he was being prepared to be Israel's judge. He thought he was just surviving exile. But God was orchestrating every experience for his purpose. Often the most difficult periods of our lives are exactly when God is preparing us for our greatest purpose. What feels like rejection can be divine redirection. If the story of how God turns rejection into preparation touches your heart, leave a like so more people can see this hope. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We have much more on how God uses the unlikely. Share it with anyone who feels rejected or unqualified, and turn on notifications. We'll see how Jephthah went from rejected to national liberator. The desperate call after years of exile. The moment came when Israel discovered that it needed the very man it had rejected. Judges 11:24-25. And it came to pass after some days, that the children of Ammon made war against Israel. And it came to pass, when the children of Ammon made war against Israel, that the elders of Gilead went to fetch Jephthah out of the land of Tob. The same elders of Gilead who had allowed Jephthah to be expelled were now desperately seeking him. The irony was stark. The rejected one had become the only hope of those who rejected him. Judges 10-8 records that the Ammonites oppressed Israel for 18 years. It was almost 2 decades of suffering, humiliation, forced tribute, children taken as slaves. The elders of Gilead went to get Jephthah. Imagine their humiliation. They had to travel all the way to Tob, the land of the outcasts, to beg for help from the man they had driven out. Judges 11-6. And they said unto Jephthah, Come, and be our captain, that we may fight against the children of Ammon. It was a belated but necessary recognition of Jephthah's leadership. But Jephthah said to the elders of Gilead, Did you not hate me and drive me out of my father's house? Why have you come to me now, when you are in distress? What courage! Jephthah directly confronted the hypocrisy of his elders. He didn't pretend the past didn't matter. He faced the reality of his rejection. And the elders of Gilead said unto Jephthah, Therefore now we have returned unto thee, that thou mayest go with us, and fight against the children of Ammon. It was a humiliating admission that they needed him. Jephthah did not accept immediately. He negotiated terms. He would not only be temporary captain, but permanent leader if he brought victory. This was political wisdom and protection against future rejection. An executive told me, Brian was unfairly fired and excluded from the market for years. Like Jephthah, when the crisis hit, the same company that fired me desperately sought me out. I negotiated a better position, and today, I am CEO. I learned that sometimes rejection is a redirection to something greater. Then Jephthah said to the elders of Gilead, If you bring me back to fight against the Ammonites, and the Lord delivers, then over to me, then I will be your head. And the elders of Gilead said to Jephthah, The Lord will be a witness between us if we do not do according to your word. They called on the name of God to secure the agreement. Then Jephthah went with the elders of Gilead, and the people made him head and captain over them. It was a complete restoration. From an outcast to a national leader accepted by the people. And Jephthah spoke all his words before the Lord. In Mizpah, Jephthah took the agreement before God, confirming that his leadership would be theocratic, not just political. Before going to war, Jephthah sought divine confirmation. He understood that victory would not depend solely on military strategy, but on God's approval and power. Judges 11:12-28 shows that Jephthah tried to resolve the conflict diplomatically before going to war. He was a wise leader who sought peace whenever possible. In diplomatic negotiations, Jephthah demonstrated a profound knowledge of Israel's history, international law, and territorial rights. He was a statesman, not just a warrior. The humility of the Gilead elders in seeking out Jephthah shows that extreme crises reveal who is truly competent. Sometimes God allows desperate situations so that we recognize the talents we have rejected. God orchestrated events so that Israel would recognize that they had rejected exactly the leader they needed. It was a lesson in superficial judgment based on origins. The impossible victory with the call accepted and the agreement made. The time had come for Jephthah to prove that God had prepared the right man for the right time. Judges 11:29. Then the Spirit of the Lord came upon Jephthah, and passed over Gilead and Manasseh, and passed over Mizpeh of Gilead, and from Mizpeh of Gilead passed over to the children of Ammon. The Spirit of the Lord came upon Jephthah. It was divine confirmation that the rejected son of the prostitute had been chosen by God to deliver Israel. It was a supernatural anointing for an impossible mission. Jephthah passed through various regions, mobilizing the tribes. His reputation and divine anointing attracted warriors from all over Israel. The rejected one had become the point of national unity. And Jephthah made a vow unto the Lord, and said, If thou wilt utterly deliver the children of Ammon into my hand, then whatsoever cometh out of the door of my house to meet me, when I return in peace from the children of Ammon, that shall be the Lord's, and I will offer it up for a burnt offering. Jephthah's vow reveals his spiritual insecurity. Despite the anointing, he felt the need to guarantee victory through a vow. It was a lack of complete trust in God's grace. So Jephthah defeated the Ammonites with a great slaughter. From Aroer as far as Minath, 20 cities, and as far as Abel-Keramim, it was a crushing and complete victory. Thus the children of Ammon were subdued before the children of Israel. After 18 years of oppression, Israel was finally free. The son of the harlot had delivered the whole nation. Now Jephthah came to his house at Mizpah, and behold, his daughter came out to meet him with timbrels and with dancing, and she was his only child. Besides her, he had neither son nor daughter. Jephthah's only daughter was the first to leave her home to celebrate his victory. Her thoughtless vote turned into the greatest personal tragedy of her life. And it came to pass, when he saw her, that he rent his clothes, and said, Ah, my daughter, thou hast brought me very low, and art one of them that trouble me, for I have opened my mouth unto the Lord, and I cannot turn back. And she said to him, My father, you opened your mouth to the Lord. Do to me according to what has come out of your mouth. For the Lord has avenged you of your enemies, the children of Ammon. A pastor said to me, Brian, the story of Jephthah taught me about the danger of rash vows. I have seen believers make promises to God without thinking about the consequences. I've learned that God prefers simple obedience to complicated vows. Scholars debate whether Jephthah actually sacrificed his daughter or consecrated her to perpetual service in the tabernacle. The text suggests real tragedy, but the debate continues. Ecclesiastes 5:4-5 teaches, When you make a vow to God, do not delay in fulfilling it. It is better not to vow than to vow and not fulfill it. Hasty vows can have tragic consequences. And Jephthah judged Israel 6 years, and Jephthah the Gileadite died, and was buried in one of the cities of Gilead. Despite his personal tragedy, Jephthah served faithfully as judge. Hebrews 11:32 lists Jephthah among the heroes of faith. And what more shall I say? For time would fail me to tell of Gideon, and Barak, and Samson, and Jephthah. God honored him despite his imperfections. Jephthah's life teaches us that God can use imperfect people for perfect purposes. His military victory was complete. Even though his personal life was marked by tragedy, the story of Jephthah shows us that even God's heroes are fallible humans. We can be used mightily by God and still make mistakes that have painful consequences. Lessons of redemption and PRPOC. Jephthah's life teaches us timeless lessons about how God transforms rejection into purpose, exclusion into leadership, humble beginnings into glorious destiny. Powerful lessons. 1. Origins do not determine destiny. Prove that it doesn't matter how you're born or where you come from. God can use anyone for his eternal purposes. 2. Rejection can be redirection. The expulsion from home was actually a divine redirection for preparation. Sometimes a human no is God's yes to something greater. 3. God uses the unlikely. The son of a prostitute became a national liberator. God specializes in using those the world considers unqualified, for adversity builds character. The difficult years in Tob forged the leadership and military competence that Israel would need. Hardships can be divine preparation. 5. Genuine humility attracts anointing. Despite rejection, Jephthah kept a humble heart. When the anointing of the Spirit came, he was ready to receive it. Never allow others to define your worth based on your background. See difficult periods as possible divine preparation. Use experiences of rejection to develop compassion. Maintain integrity even when unfairly rejected. Trust that God has bigger plans than you can see. A man who grew up in foster care told me, Brian, Jephthah gave me hope. I realized that my humble beginnings don't disqualify me from God's plan. Today I pastor a church and help young orphans discover their purpose. My rejection has become my mission. We have reached the end of this journey through the extraordinary life of Jephthah. You have discovered today that God has a special plan for those the world rejects, that he transforms humble beginnings into glorious destinies. The story of Jephthah teaches us that it doesn't matter how you begin, matters how you end. That your identity comes not from your origins, but from what God says about you. That human rejection can be divine selection for something extraordinary. Declare with me, my origins do not determine my destiny. God can use my past for His purpose. I am chosen even when rejected. My rejection is preparation for my mission. I am a Jephthah in my generation. If Jephthah's story sparked hope that God can use your life regardless of your background, like it now, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications for more stories that show God's redemptive power. Share it with anyone who feels disqualified by their past. And here is my prophetic challenge. Comment below on this sentence: God can use my life like He used Jephthah. I want to see how many of you believe that God transforms rejected people into chosen ones. May God bless you, and may the peace of the Eternal be with you.